You can view the video of this podcast on Jazz Cabbage's YouTube or Facebook pages.
All right, we are live on Facebook. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Now streaming live on Spotify.
Yay.
All right.
We're so cool.
Yeah, I just got a notification. You guys are live on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, consider yourself notified.
That's right. You know.
All right,
now,
so
man.
another good show. We'll play our huge piece of new production pretty soon, but we keep growing that every week. Most recently, Rick, thanks to Rick, we are now in some of its post-production, but on many platforms, and you can listen or watch it or many different ways, audio, video, all the major platforms. So thank you, Rick, and hopefully we'll reach some more people with this great information that we keep on putting on record. Today, later on, is going to be awesome because we're going to celebrate Ed Rosenthal and his many contributions to this movement, his advocacy, his activism, his part in cultivation and education, and his thoughts on current stuff. And he requested Adam Brook, who's with us right now, to be part of this conversation. And many people then asked if they could be a part of the conversation too. And so this turned into a celebration. For looking forward to that in a little bit later then. And I'm really interested in getting some more of this history and stuff like that on record and having these conversations, man. There's always great. It seems like Adam tends to be involved in these when we go back a few decades.
Mm-hmm. And just to let everybody, all the audio file listeners know, we're currently with host Jamie Lowell. We have Rick Thompson, Debra Young, and Adam Brook on screen right now.
Should formalize a little more and get those intros out. Yeah. But,
just the form.
So, man, 2021 started off being extremely fucking weird. And with some intensities that happened, starting, almost like as we were getting off the show last week. And Nick Zettell, he prefers Zettell, I think, has decided to join us.
What's up, everybody?
I don't even know how to talk about the insurgency. That is just kind of a show in and of itself, or a rambling in and of itself. There's so much intensity there. I don't mind if people want to bring that up, but like along with this, we also got what we were hoping for, not necessarily expecting, but that was the victory of both senators in Georgia, which gave us a 50-50 split in the Senate, which gives the majority to the Democrats and majority control of all the committees and all that kind of stuff. And as we know, there's been just gridlock and getting anything done or anything really examined or discussed even, other than getting federal judges appointed the last 4 years. So there'll be some movement. Now, at the end of the last session, the MORE Act passed Congress. Wasn't taken up in the Senate, obviously, because of the previous conditions. And during the campaign leading up to the elections, both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden said they supported decriminalization and expungements. So, are we going to get something now? Is the MORE Act going to pass? Nadler, as of earlier this year, who introduced the MORE Act in Congress, I believe was the main bill sponsor, said that he believes that it's going to go through. And if it does, there's recent report too that some of like the new commissioner, what's the actual title? The Commerce Secretary would like to see distribution being done through federal stores, federally operated stores. She's a former governor of Rhode Island and proposed that. We're joined by Colin MacDougall.
Hey, Colin.
Proposed that there. And, recently on Planet Green Trees, we had Howard Woolridge, the cop on the Hill. He's been on our show too. A lot of people are very familiar with him. He was all for just descheduling federally, which is part of the MORE Act, but it has other things included. Some of those things that we liked, some that we didn't. What it would look like for this next time around is yet to be seen. Just getting rid of the state and federal conflict and letting the states do their thing. So all these different ways where it could go down, and not every single way would we necessarily prefer. So do we actually get something now that everything is lined up? And if we do get something, are we going to have to put up with stuff like excessive taxes and heavy government influence in the operation of stores and stuff like that? What do you think, Rick?
Well, I think that if we do get what we want, which is federal descheduling, then the federal government has a lot less leverage to use on states in order to enforce federal law against them, because Schedule 1 gives them a lot of power. More than likely, what we'll see is the Biden administration taking cannabis down to Schedule 2, perhaps Schedule 3. That's the more business-centric approach that allows pharmaceuticals. We're joined by Mike and Gail Whitty right now. Hi, guys. That we're joined. We've got a lot of concerns about descheduling, but more concerns about rescheduling to 2 or 3. It allows pharmaceuticals to really run rampant and take over the industry. It also gives the federal government a lot more control over what happens within states. If it's descheduled, then we have those 50 individual crucibles of democracy, each state deciding their own program. And then, we can pick the best solutions from all 50 examples. That would be the goal that we would want. But I don't want to gloss over what happened on Wednesday in the Capitol, where armed insurrectionists burst into the House of Representatives and the Senate chambers, causing elected officials to flee for their lives. There were cries to kill the vice president. There were cries to kill the Speaker of the House. Most certainly, they had erected a gallows on the Capitol grounds. They were ready to do it. They had zip ties. They had all the will. They had all the personnel necessary to do it. I've oftentimes thought that if there was a revolution about cannabis, that we might have to go to the federal government in order to do it. Never in any of my imaginations about cannabis law reform did I ever think that we would take hostages and kill people or erect a gallows in order to get our point across. This is extremism personified. It cannot be normalized. It has to be punished. We can't let this go on. Debra Young, please, your take on this.
Well, obviously I agree with everything you just said about the insurrection. I was hoping that cannabis would be an early in the administration, they look at it. I think with all the shit going on in Washington, we're going to get pushed to the back burner for a while again, because obviously there's shit coming down. And Adam and I were kind of bantering about this a little earlier. He said this is stuff that he'd envisioned and stuff that the U.S. government had done in other countries. I agree with all of that, but we cannot allow that to happen here in the U.S. This is just crazy. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And yeah, smoking a doobie in the lobby would have been awesome, but not taking a shit in the lobby of the Congress, Adam. Not beating somebody over the head with a fire extinguisher, not hanging gallows out, or not screaming to kill the vice president, hang the vice president. I hate Mike Pence, but I don't want to hang him, for Christ's sake. That's not how we are as Americans. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to some promises made by the Biden administration. I don't think they're going to happen real quick, because I think there's some real things that need to be addressed immediately. So maybe a few weeks down the line, I don't know. I watched an FBI conference a few minutes ago, and they of course were talking bullshit as usual, flapping their jaws saying that we will get our man and shit. Meanwhile, half of these idiots went home and are running around still acting like idiots. So what the fuck? Trump legitimized all of these people. They came out. Now we have to figure out how to get this back together, because this is just not going to go. This is just crazy. Adam, this has got me so anxious. My head is ready to explode.
I wouldn't have guessed that, Deborah. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Let me introduce Adam Brook now for our audio people who don't have the privilege of seeing video. This is Adam Brook, Mr. Hashbash. Welcome.
What I said was that 30 years ago, when I started this, that's the type of shit I envisioned us having to do. When there were thousands of us being locked in cages every year for nothing, for something that now they've embraced, legalized, and are now taxing. I envisioned tens of thousands of us showing up at state houses all over the country, walking in as it's our house, and sitting down and smoking a joint. That's what I envisioned. And unfortunately, that never happened. And unfortunately, this country has gone very, very far to the whack side of that. Because the guys that showed up at this Capitol event were not people that have been showing up at protests for years. These are people that have been energized. These are not normal folks. These are the
burning crosses. Yeah.
Okay.
They're not abnormal. There's a lot of them. I mean,
There's a
the
lot of
truth
them, and
is,
they've always been there. We just
the truth
now
is-
they're
the truth is that until the investigation comes out, okay, many of the things we're saying are not factual. They're just assumptions.
I disagree with that. We've got video evidence for everything we're talking
Yes,
about.
No. Okay,
I
Rick,
bought
Rick,
a lot of
Rick,
that.
Rick, hold on, Rick. Hold on. Your video evidence of some asshole with zip ties in his hand that he did not bring with him, that he picked up in a box
Wow.
outside the door, that the Congress has there for
Wow.
emergencies, according to the House.
according to him, I mean, that
No,
was
no,
his
not
defense.
According to him.
He said
Yeah,
he picked them
according
off
to
the
him.
That's what
porch.
he said. That's what he
He
said.
says he didn't bring them to avoid consequence,
Except
Adam.
he
I
had
don't
it
think
on.
underneath his
Hold
jacket,
on.
inside his jacket. Okay, so why you
According-
picked it up and shielded him inside his jacket because he wanted to turn them over to a police officer? You believe that, Adam Brook? Come on.
I don't believe that at all. I believe the Sergeant at Arms of the House of Representatives. Do you?
Well,
No, because he has resigned in shame.
look, the fact is you can have zip ties there, but you can also bring zip ties with you. And
I'm just
remember,
talking-
Adam, that guy was dressed in military gear.
I'm
He
not
had
talking
earbuds.
about that. And I know who that guy was. That was a former U.S. military guy. Do you
Exactly
want my
right.
opinion on that?
So
He was
We don't have
trained
to-
by our government to do what he did.
we don't have to,
And
we don't
encouraged
have
by
to
our
go through
president to come out and
all
do it.
angles. We don't have to go through all angles
My
on
point
this
is-
issue.
My
Yeah.
point is, before we start speaking in specifics, I think we need to wait to hear exactly what happened. I'm more interested in who let these people into a secure building. I'm more interested in why the National Guard was not called out for an event that they should have been at. I'm more concerned over the fact that the mayor of Washington, D.C., unlike the governors of every state, does not have the right to call the National Guard when she needs it.
Right. She depends on the
But
White
it's not a
House.
state. It's
And
not a
we-
state. They've been
and we
trying to
agree-
be
She
a
should
state
have
for
access.
years.
She should have
I
access
understand
to
that. I
security.
understand that. So the only
And-
one who can call them out is the fucking president. And he
So
did not call them up.
Right, he did not. And we ultimately agree
did
that
not.
that the culmination of facts will drive our conclusion of this
Can I offer
Right.
story here.
Yeah, let's
If we're
move
gonna
to
avoid, if we're trying to avoid, jumping, getting into hardlining on specifics, saying that the, government trained that guy to go in there is, about as specific as it can get, and pretty much just based on conjecture. But I had two friends over. I jokingly asked if they wanted to, the night before, if they wanted to come over for a C-SPAN watch party. And they actually took me up on it, but I knew there was a Trump rally, wanted to watch that and see the shenanigans that would inevitably, kind of come from that, and watch live streams and also watch C-SPAN, because I've never actually followed the tally of the Electoral College, right? So I was expecting that it would be kind of boring, a bunch of pomp and circumstance, and then it'd just be, your typical protest footage. But from 9:30 a.m. until 11 p.m., we were glued to the TV watching C-SPAN, and then on laptops, multiple streams from live streamers, most all of them in the Trump crowd. And it was just astounding to see him say, in the morning, we're going, down there, we're going to the Capitol building. He's pointing a block away. They're in the middle of the DC Mall. They, have a little ways to go, and just what we saw unfolded was astounding and so linearly took place.
And disturbing
Giuliani,
as fuck.
combat by arms, and the Trump, messages up until that point. It was as absolutely intense disturbing. as you get. And
As
I agree
intense
with
as
Derek.
911.
Yeah,
All I know-
absolutely.
for our-
That's what I've compared it to.
Hang on,
Yeah,
guys.
that's
For our audio crew, that was for our folks listening by audio, that was Nick Zettell that was just speaking a moment ago, and we're going to go to Colin MacDougall.
So and also if you
Everybody's
and also we had the question of, are we going to get like something that makes sense this year because of the I kind of like that. If you want to talk about the insurgency instead, I guess that's fine too. It's really important, and whatever somebody feels they want to.
Well, it's kind of mixed together, like I say, because it's so out there. I can't imagine they're going to be addressing anything except for this for a while.
Colin MacDougall, let's get your opinion here. Colin, Decriminalized Nature Ann Arbor, longtime member of the Jazz Cabbage Cafe and many other things. Welcome. What do you got to say?
And our guru,
The
our
MTO
resident
show.
guru.
He's not over
I was going to mention the Entheo show had its first episode on Friday, and so that premiered. We interviewed the Detroit Decriminalized Nature crew there, and the founders of Decriminalized Nature Oakland. So check that out. As far as like the insurrection goes, I mean, I think we all knew it was going to happen, like sooner or later, how it was going to happen. I mean, it was, like the last couple days of the presidency. It's just like that final like burst,
Shitstorm.
Shitstorm. We're in the eye of the shitstorm.
Exactly.
Oh, that sounds gross, but it sounds pretty accurate.
But Hurricane Donald Trump, craziest shitstorm that ever hit America.
Historically bad. Yep. Go ahead,
I guess like I gotta agree with Debra. They're gonna like go after this for a little while before like anything's gonna happen with cannabis. I feel like I know that I'm glad that they took the Senate. We didn't even talk about that though. We've been talking about it for like months, and like we did flip the Senate in Georgia that day. So we could,
which I started the show with. Of course, it came out a little late.
One of the congresswomen from Georgia infected like 3 Democratic congresspeople in the safe room with COVID. Three of them have tested
Many of them
positive.
refused to wear masks.
She refused.
Like
I saw her mockingly refusing to take the mask. I saw the video of it.
Yeah,
refusing and doing a little jig. She did a little dance. I'm not going to wear a mask dance.
To the point now that they're trying to pass a rule that would fine any congressperson that didn't wear a mask.
Well, they do that for NFL coaches on the sidelines. Why can't they do it for seniors?
Exactly.
Let's go to Mike Whitty, Dr. Detroit himself. Mike Whitty, thank you for joining the program. We got a lot of people here, and everybody gets a chance to speak. Mike, it's your turn. Thanks for joining. What do you have to say about the subject we've been talking about?
Well, very briefly, today's New York Times front page has a beautiful story that gives me the long view for our long haul to effectively identify the core ideology of the far right or this extremism as Christian conservatism. And they've used the Jesus holy war to tie in the militia to the evangelical right or the religious right. And so it's the long view, post-Trump, beyond one cycle of elections, although I think we all want to keep an eye on protecting our team in Lansing, Gretchen Whitmer, the Attorney General and Secretary of State, who will be targeted by the militias. Remember, they had 12 buses out of Milford with this woman whose husband is a far-right Trump guy, and she will become the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. The incumbents are vulnerable in off-year cycles, and both Biden, who will be put too much on his plate to carry, and the governor, who they've been vilifying and walked in with their AK-47s already, and this weekend is another round of the same kind of stuff in Lansing. I would just say let's try to be positive on our sub-issue, but also let's protect our friends and rally people in the Cannabis Caucus, Democratic Cannabis Caucus, to defend the governor against the Michigan militia. And people have been calling me from Dana's office about Zoom fundraisers for her this spring. So we have to come on defense. These people are not quitting just because Trump is quitting. They're in it for life, and we are too. So I just think if you all would take a look at this really thoughtful article. I read a lot, but I was terribly moved by this. It's a long-standing topic. World fundamentalism, religious world fundamentalism is the source of Islamic extremism, Christian extremism, holy wars, the Crusades, the jihads. They did one on us, and they carried Jesus out there 2020 with them as their top guy.
Well, for our Spotify and Alexa listeners, we've been joined by Derek Gauci, Shelly Smith, and Bobby West, known as Uncle Stoner. We're going to take them in the order in which I saw them appear on the screen, which means, Derek Gauci, you are next. We've been talking about will we get good cannabis law reform in 2021, or talking about the events Wednesday. What are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, the events Wednesday certainly, we're shaking, man. I think it's important. What I just try to do for myself is like try to look at like moments that are like that and just do my, I try not to be scared, man. It's like, I see it as almost like an act of terrorism. So I just want to like look around, and I encourage everybody else to do that too, at the people like that they can help do that. Try to see the best in everyone, because right now I feel like a lot of people are mixed up, and it's kind of like, it's difficult for me to perceive the good guy and the bad guy right now. So yeah, man, I'm just trying my best to not jump to pointing fingers at the people around me, and
But religious
further giving in to this like civil war that could be happening.
Religious conservatives define smoking marijuana as immoral, ipso facto immoral, an insult to God, a road to hell. They are not people you should have a blind spot on, Derek.
It's cool. We're all going to ride the bus together down to hell, all right?
Yeah.
All of us.
That's America's created. It's a land of very different subjective viewpoints about a lot of different things. So let's move next to Shelly Smith. Derek, of course, was an original Jazz Cabbage Cafe member. Shelly weeds and reads. She does so many other things too. Thanks for joining the program. What is your opinion on what we've been discussing?
I wanted to share an article that somebody sent me, written by Indi Samara Jiva. It's called "I Lived Through a Stupid Coup. America is Having One Now," and it addressed the fact that we're all sitting here going like, those people are so stupid. Those are rednecks. Those are not us. And it addresses the fact that we're pretending like, that whenever somebody says this isn't us, I'm like, yeah, it is. It always has been us. Like, there's always been, my brothers I've always known people with guns that they want to carry. I've always known people who, there was a time when members of my family bought Barack Obama shooting targets. Do you know what I mean? So when we say things like, this isn't us, and we go like, oh, it was so stupid what they did, the article is kind of saying like, you're going to sit around, you're going to think it's stupid, you're going to be glad that things are getting back to normal, but there's all these angry seeds spread out around the country right now. They're not just done. They're not done. So I guess my shift, I guess, has been what I'm thinking about and projecting into the world, and how kind I can be, and how, what kind of waves can I put out into the world that are peaceful waves, and what conversations can I have, because it's not gone. So I think even if they catch a bunch of people, these are people, they weren't, I'm really happy to hear that Twitter accounts are being suspended and QAnon leaders are being suspended from spreading the word, but that's not the only way they have to spread the word. I just realized we need to be peaceful and vigilant at the same time.
Well, Shelly, those are some pretty inspirational words. That's wonderful. Next in our list, by the way, we've been joined by Berg from Medical Mondays and Rhory Gould from Ann Arbor's Arborside. Bobby West, every time you're on the show, I feel like I get location envy. He's sitting here for our audio listeners. He's got his shirt half open, short sleeves, all tanned up, someplace with
Bobby West being in Jamaica.
That's right.
Jamaica, on.
Yeah, so I mean, the rest of us all dress up in hats.
All of our shirts are open. Tune in. All shirts open.
Hey, we did get some rain today. It's 79. It's only 79, not 80 or 85. And we did get some rain, actually.
Okay.
So,
all right.
And he had a mild chill this morning for a second.
Yeah, I think it went up.
He understands the struggle.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. And of course, I got Karen here joining in on the show.
Karen is a little kitty cat.
This cat, when we came here in September, we can't get more than 10 feet away from her. Now she can't be more than 2 feet from us. Yeah, she's changed. Real friendly cat here. But anyway, it is sad how this election and everything has actually divided a lot of people. I mean, family members and stuff. I mean, it's like almost like the Civil War back in the day, where family members went against family members, and that's how it is now. Is there's a lot of, I have family members that are on one side, of this with Trump. I have other family members that are on with Biden. I have others like me and are just thinking it's both crazy. But it's really sad where our country, especially when it comes down to violence, them storming the Capitol building. They're saying, oh, it's our right to do this. No, like I said in one of my live feeds, I learned if you don't like the politician, when if you vote and you lose and you don't like the politician, well, would you 4 more years, vote again and get them out of there. You were still civil to your neighbor or your cousins or whoever. Now this is really like where people are, it's crazy how it's torn us apart, how sad it is. It's really torn us apart as a community. To me, I'm just, as long as I don't care who you support, as long as there is a limit and there is wrong. And what happened when the Capitol got stormed and everything, that was wrong, plain and simple, to my opinion.
Berg from Medical Mondays. We avoided talking about this subject during your show last night, but you're more than welcome to chime in on that or any optimism you have for 2021. Go.
I just want to point out the one fact that like these fucking idiots had full right to wear masks while they're committing these fucking
and didn't
crimes.
Do it.
And nobody wore a fucking
dumbasses. Yeah,
idiots,
and then
stupid motherfuckers, man.
Film themselves and promote.
That's the difference between that and a Black Lives Matter rally. Black Lives Matter knows to wear a mask when you can.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically it. Like
Also safer.
I just
due to the reality of the pandemic. And those who do that are smarter.
Because they felt they were justified. The president said, "Come on," so they thought that nothing would touch them.
That's exactly right. You see some unabashed behavior because people thought that they were doing exactly what the Constitution allowed them to do.
Trump told them to.
He told them to do it.
They're like, "Oh, let's
trial by combat," said Giuliani. Trial by combat.
And then they had to brag about it. And they put it out on their own social media.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's claiming these are the smartest people around. Remember, most of them are the greatest. Most of them are the greatest thing America ever put out, and that's a redneck.
But
that's like an American invention.
Hang on, guys. Let this is Berg's time. Let Berg go. Berg.
No, it's like like Trump was like telling these motherfuckers, like, "Oh, let's go march down here." And where'd he
I'm coming with you, he said.
He went
into
the little media tent and watched everything on camera. While
did you see them dancing in there?
People are dancing. They're like celebrating that we're having a fucking coup in the in the Capitol building. Like shit was just like it was a shit show.
They feel right.
It was crazy.
They feel right. They feel like.
Does anybody really think that
saving...
was? But does anybody really think that was anywhere near a coup?
Well, it's not what I would
I think
traditionally
that's a
think
misrepresentation.
Oh, no,
They were trying.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a mob rebellion.
No, but it's an attempt at a coup. It's an attempt at an insurrection. That's what
insurrection, yes,
Well,
but
thank God it
the
was
media's
not,
called it a coup. And
a coup implies
an attempted coup. It wasn't a successful coup.
All right, let's move it over to
too many voices. Yeah, let's bring Rhory into the conversation. Last member of our on-screen talent, Rhory Gould, longtime owner of Arborside Dispensary in Michigan, and Arbor. You've heard our subject matter. What do you got, my friend?
I'm sitting here listening to this stuff on the news right now. Trump failed to act as mob stormed the U.S. Capitol. Okay, well, he did start that mob heading over to the Capitol. It seemed like something out of a movie. Like,
Are you seeing that what the articles of impeachment are going to be based on? Is that part of the story that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, that's what they're doing right now.
He's going to be potentially impeached for the second time in his one and only term. Disaster.
Well,
that's
go ahead, Rhory. It's your time.
I'm not a fan of Trump. Never was, never will be, even before he ran for president. And I didn't know how he ended up being our president. Actually, I do, because he was on TV, on a show. That's how everybody ended up getting to know who he was. Before that show, not everybody knew who Donald Trump was. Well, guess what? We found out on Wednesday who Donald Trump really is.
Up his ass.
We
Punk
already
ass
knew.
Now, it took the
Oh.
bungling of the pandemic response and this heinous act in order for some people to finally get it and disassociate themselves
Some people don't get it
from him.
still.
Some people
I-
still don't
You're
get
right.
it.
Yeah.
Some
Right.
people
Don't
don't
forget.
get it still.
Well, I think that's
There
what
are-
Shelly refers to, is that there's still the underlying issues that are
Yeah.
causing these symptoms.
But-
They don't go away because of this.
part of our problem is there are also party members who will support whoever is running their party.
Party over
And that's-
country.
Die-hard Republicans.
That's part of the biggest problem we have, because it happens in both parties.
The two-party system creates party loyalty above all else.
That's
It's
exactly
either
right.
it's either me or it's them, and there's no third option of any reasonable size. in
I
America.
have
We
friends-
suffer for that.
Right. I have friends who will not vote Democrat. Period. End of story. End of discussion. I mean, I said last time when we had the option to vote for Gary Johnson, when I was asked that, people would be like, well, who are you voting for, Trump or Clinton? And I was fortunate enough that I made Gary Johnson a promise I'd vote for him. So I didn't have to participate in that nonsense. But it's a problem for people.
There are Republicans who did not vote, who never voted for a Democrat before, who did not vote for Trump. My husband is one of them. He skipped the top of the ticket the first time, and this, you know, and he did not vote for Hillary, and he didn't vote for, you know, that shit. But this time around, he voted for Biden. The first time in his entire life he's ever done that, ever.
Those are few and far between.
Very few and far between.
So
I mean,
that's
the reality is that the Reagan Democrats were a much larger group.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not numerically because this had the greatest voter turnout of all,
Yeah.
but I understand as a percentage wise. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, a lot of conservatives voted for Biden with the concept of resetting government. You know, here we have a guy that's totally just been a nutball and has disregarded the balance of powers and the Constitution and a lot of institutions. We just need some dude back in there who's kind of at least middle of the road who can reset these things.
Don't forget, just before the election, he had enough high level Republicans who had been lifetime Republicans, who had served as public service people, walk away from him and not back him before the election. And that happened right before the election. And that to me showed that he might not have had all the support that he was claiming he had.
We saw Lindsey Graham being assaulted by pro-Trump supporters in an airport, and he's a key figure in the Republican Party. And we also saw the same thing happen to Mitt Romney on an airplane, too. I
Lindsey
believe
Graham's out with the president again today. He's on Air Force One with the president again today.
All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap up that conversation and move on to our next conversation because our special guest joined us, it seems. Oh, that was just Rhory being in with us.
There's an echo.
Computer.
Yeah, you got a bad echo going.
Yeah.
Rory, you have to close one screen. You're on there twice and it's
You're
echoing.
making us echo there, Rory. Echo.
It's twice as good. That's why.
One of Rory is enough.
Are you I.
What the fuck, Rory?
Everybody
Who's running
shame
this?
Rhory for a moment. Boo, Rhory. We're not going to, there's 12 of us on this call right now. We don't want to shame Rory. That would be bad.
Why not?
Why
I don't know. Sounded good.
That sounds better.
Sounded like the adult thing to say. Yeah. So, but let's do this. So let's move on. Ed Rosenthal should be joining us very soon. Isn't that correct, Jamie?
I hope so. Yeah, we're hoping around 4:30, which is coming up.
So
Hey,
in
you
order
anything? You see
Hey,
Adam?
Rick?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing about this whole thing that happened at the Capitol. As a guy that's put on tons of rallies, I'm still having a hard time getting past the fact that when they turned in a permit request for a rally for 30,000 people, that they weren't required to have more security. And I think in the end, we're going to find that while this was a horrible assault on the Capitol. But maybe some of the politics behind it and that allowed it and encouraged it are really the real problem. And unfortunately, that's going to cause the Democrats, like you say, to address those issues at the beginning of their
presidency
takeover.
Yeah, like there's some agencies, some federal agencies, some other police forces and stuff we're waiting to be a part of. Support,
right? And
you know,
and here's the problem.
Clearly, there was a feeling on the White House that these guys were not going to be a threat, perhaps because they were white, perhaps because they were pro-Trump supporters.
The problem is that while we think that, okay, we have the trifecta, we have a Democratic administration, we have a Democratic House, and we have a Democrat Senate. The problem is that's only for 2 years. And in the next 2 years, they may waste so much time on some of these issues and preventing this stuff from ever happening again and preventing some TV guy or some rapper from becoming president. I mean, this has changed the politics of America. And unfortunately, as a subclass, us weed people, I don't think we're going to be on the radar for a long time.
For the record, I think some rappers and TV people would be pretty cool leaders, but just
cool leaders.
Not
cool. Let's debate who, right?
Yeah.
You don't think P. Diddy would have made a good president, right?
He's one. He's one guy.
But before we move on, I do want to say, kind of, piggybacking on Adam's point and just talking about how this does play into what we can expect for cannabis reform. Yeah. I do think that on one hand, the Democrats are going to probably waste a little bit of time being preoccupied with correcting and overcorrecting what happened. And some of that's going to be driven by just vindictiveness. And I do think that is probably going to sour some people, and who knows how the next, few elections will go. But I do also think that there's a level of vindictiveness that, is ultimately going to make our lawmaking process easier. If they can censure and expel Ted Cruz, and with Mitch McConnell not being, the Senate Majority Leader for the first time since 2012, I think that that's going to make our I hope that that'll make our legislative bodies a little bit more efficient, because they just haven't done much in a good number of years. Everything goes to a standstill.
They haven't had.
Well, the trifecta, which is when you have one party that controls the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. In the state of Michigan, it would be the governorship. Federally, it would be the presidency. That hasn't always proven to be a big boon to the party in command, because I remember George W. Bush, the Tea Party Republicans were so severed that their majority was almost a useless factor, because they couldn't agree amongst themselves, and they would vindictively vote against other people's bills, even if they were good bills, just because they wanted to stymie the other half of the Republican Party. Now, I see a similar scenario unfolding within the Democratic Party, as we've seen some progressives and we've seen some moderates really go at each other like dogs in a cage. So this may not be the big boon for legislative success in 2021 and 2022.
Especially when you have people that are basically up for election and may not get reelected. So they have 2 years to do what they can.
Yeah. Well, there are some things I think that the Democrats are going to agree on, which is rolling back some of the Trump changes that were made. I think environmentally, Biden's talked about getting back into the Paris Accords and renegotiating some of those trade things, and trying to open up dialogue with Iran again regarding the nuclear program. So there are so many different things that they're going to have a focus on. I mean, they'll still find time to bitch at each other. No. Hopefully they'll have big picture in mind. That's my belief.
Yeah, and cannabis is not a partisan enough issue that's going to be a priority for the Democratic caucus as Democrats. Right. There's still going to be some that disagree, but maybe that is where we'll see some reaching across the aisle, like we've had to. So that's a possibility that cannabis reform can happen, but just not timely.
I think the biggest thing will be as more states force the issue and come on board in the next couple of years. I think that really was going to put some pressure on the federal government to address it before they lose control, because they don't want to lose their ability to control it the way they want, make money, right? Which is why I'm against the whole thing. So.
Big pharmaceuticals takeover.
No, I'm not worried about big pharmaceutical takeovers. That's not my problem. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm expecting that. I've always expected that. I expect Coca-Cola to get in the game now that we can have beverages. That's in Marlboro. I expect them all. They're coming. And they're going to legitimize what we do. Don't you worry. The problem is, why are you telling me, the small guy who has this substance that I can do whatever I want with? I can grow it anywhere in the world. I can grow it in my house, in my backyard. I can heal myself with it. I can party with it. I can do what I want. But you want to control it from thousands of miles away, or with some taxation or craziness?
Capitalism is a mortal enemy of personal property, personal rights, man. Capitalism is the mortal enemy of personal rights. And in order to gain exclusivity for the business world, they have to take away from your freedoms, because otherwise you wouldn't need to buy from them.
They also haven't been 100% honest, because you will talk to people, we all do, talk to people who will tell you that weed's legal in Michigan. And why don't you smoke on your front porch?
I do.
Because they just don't.
Yeah,
they don't.
sure. Why don't
We
you?
all do.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
I do smoke on my front porch, and I've smoked weed long before weed was legal in Michigan. So your laws don't affect me, but they do affect other people. And there are people who, once they find out that you can't smoke weed in public in Michigan, A, won't do it, and B, are shocked because they had no concept.
I'm hitting my front porch right now. I'll be right back.
Yeah, my front porch is not public.
But what that means is up for interpretation too. It's a
Right.
Hitting his front porch? Yes, I know. It is up for interpretation. What's he doing on the porch?
I will tell you, I saw someone posted something in an online argument about, well, it's all about court interpretation. And that's part of the problem we've had in Michigan. But that also, to me, says this is what we need to do in the future to make sure we're not interpreted by the courts in a way we don't want to. Maybe some of these laws need to be written by those of us who actually believe this way, meaning maybe some of us should be running for office, because the lawmakers are still non-smokers, all of them.
That's a must. That is a must. One of us, getting into politics. And I'm not.
But we're all nominating you,
Ryan.
Jamie, go for it. Got your campaign poster right here.
Yeah, campaign with the White Panther hat.
I'll support people
Jamie,
who.
you'd be a good politician.
Jamie's barred.
No,
Jamie's
not
barred
me.
from running.
I don't want to get beat up like that.
Deb, you seem ready. You
No,
seem
dude, they're all up
poised.
in your personal shit. I got a lot of skeletons. No.
Jamie doesn't actually have to agree to for us to nominate him. We can easily
That's
pick
true.
him to get
Jamie,
him on,
Jamie's barred though.
That's right.
Jamie, aren't you
I
a
second that.
licensed
Jamie
I
Lowell for
second that.
school board.
Hey, Debra.
Yeah.
Jamie's in the cannabis industry
Yeah,
with
he's
an ownership
barred by
stake,
law.
so he can't take a public office. He's not allowed to, or else he'd have to give up his cannabis business.
Guys, where's Ed?
Hey, Debra, last night you
That's a
said
good question, man. We expect him on about 4:30.
What did I say last night?
We have a
You said
robust
you were gonna
conversation going
unveil
here.
something.
I sent out information again to see what's going
I
on.
was
If you
going to
have a-
show you a new
Just hold-
background, right?
Hold on one
I
second.
got it, but
Hold on one second. Rory, if you have a way of double checking and seeing what's going on, that would be cool, man.
All right, so here's what I want to do. I want Uncle Stoner right now to give us his best Ed Rosenthal story. Do you have an Ed Rosenthal story?
Oh, what about the
We're going to start doing this before Ed comes on. That's, I think, more entertaining for our audience.
giant
I
hit?
can't
Bobby?
participate.
The giant hit.
The one
Ed?
time that
Dab?
when Ed was at
When Ed did that
CC
dab and
and,
you
he bent over to grab his books, and Lawrence Cherniak, the writes a great books of hash, thought it'd be funny to goose Ed, give him a goose. Was not so funny.
While he was
I've
taking
never
a
seen
dab.
Ed, never
got
seen
a
Ed get a little
video
bit
of it,
mad, but
Bobby.
he didn't lose it. Oh, that big old dab! I mean, that dab that he took, big old dab about this long,
And he
hanging to
did
my
it.
thumb, just dabbing them out at your booth, at Rory's booth. Was that your booth, right, Rory?
What was that? In my booth? Yeah. I have video
Yeah.
of that.
So how about you,
Yeah.
Rhory? What's your best Ed Rosenthal story? Since Adam seems to want to beg off, I'm not going to talk about it. He says.
Oh, I can tell stories. You want me to tell stories?
Let's give Rhory a chance. Go ahead. Yeah, your best Rosenthal story. Come on.
I'm like Adam.
Oh, come on.
All right.
I don't want to make Ed look, silly. I mean, I could tell you stories about almost getting into a fight, and I had to break it up between Ed and someone else.
Those all the things he wouldn't want to talk about.
But I wouldn't.
List some more of the stuff he wouldn't want to talk about. That'd be great.
This is the best Ed story. I just picked him up at the airport, and we drove back and dropped off all his stuff at the hotel. And I was taking him to go see a nice grow, and we get pulled over for speeding. And the cop is like looking at us, and he asks me, and he asks Ed, what's his name? And he's just like looking at us. And between the two of us, we had nothing on us. You got a dispensary and Ed Rosenthal, and we had nothing in the car.
Wow.
We were laughing about it afterwards. It's just how unreal that was.
That should be unusual.
And that was in Ann Arbor too.
Oh no, because you're normally packing. So
yeah. Oh, usually.
Aren't we all? Yeah. I have a quick Ed Rosenthal story. It was really kind of formative for me. This was maybe 2010 or 11, and there was a protest on the Michigan State Capitol building steps. I went out with, I think, Sharmy and Chuck Ream, and I remember, or maybe, I don't know who I went out there with, but I rode back with Chuck and Ed, because Chuck was taking Ed to the airport, and I was like 19 at the time, and Ed's rolling these hog leg sized joints of some like
Ed, where are you?
Something grape, but yeah, I just was getting so high and having these two dudes.
Yeah, we're all waiting for you.
So much institutional history about cannabis.
All right, Ed's gonna be with us in a second.
Yeah, we can hear him on the phone, Rhory.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stop then.
No, kid, no,
Bobby,
Nick, finish out. Go
Bobby,
ahead.
there looks like a giant bud behind you. Move your head for a
That was
second.
more or less all there was to my story, but it wasn't
Dig it.
ride with both those two for such a young guy.
So I remember, just not that's a huge thing, but like of course Rhory's been helping facilitate bringing Ed out to Michigan.
Oh, a couple times.
A lot of times, yeah. And one of those times a few years ago was at that what used to be the Clarion, whatever it's called now.
Wyndham Gardens.
In Wyndham, in that little auditorium thing. And while he was giving his presentation, I ended up getting a text that one of the first major credible polls revealed over 50% support for full legalization from nationally.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time we reached that threshold, I happened to be, listening to a presentation.
I remember you telling me that there.
And then I was just recently going over some online staff training stuff with Americans for Safe Access. And some of the legal discussion brings up these several court cases. And one of them was Ed's case from 2007, in which part of it, I believe anyway, and I kind of wanted to hear him talk about it possibly, is that it was revealed that the federal agents were acting vindictively toward him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear about that one.
I can tell you that in 2015, I was in Denver, Colorado. We were doing a video project with Steve Green, a radio show that I was doing at the time. And we had a booth at the High Times Cannabis Cup out there. It was the first year it was legal in Denver at that time. And I saw Ed Rosenthal with a dab rig. And Ed Rosenthal challenged me to do a dab. And I actually did a bigger dab than Ed did. Now, since then, I've become a horrible wimp, and I can hardly take anything in at all. But back then, I was quite the chimney, and it was a fun experience. And he was so gracious, really.
So I'll tell you a story since he's not here yet, and this will get him here. So Ed shared with me some photos of a bud called Creeper. Not Creeper like you smoke it in 20 minutes or an hour later you get high, but Creeper the way it creeped down a hill. And it was the most amazing weed plant I'd ever seen. You know how when you stick a thing into a computer, it asks if you want to copy it or just view or whatever? So in the spook book, the one thing it tells you is whenever you have this opportunity, you always hit copy. So it opened up the file and we looked at it and it copied all these photos to my hard drive. And for years, I had pictures of this really cool plant that I'd never knew what happened to it. I've never seen it out there. Nobody's promoting this thing. And I've got pictures on a disc somewhere, because of course that's where it landed, of this. And I want to ask Ed about this creeper weed because I never heard about it. And it was the type of thing that if you lived on a hillside or if you wanted to trellis something, this was perfect for that. It's how it grew. And,
oh my gosh, I love that.
I mean, this would be huge if we could sell this. And I want to ask Ed what happened to it because I snatched photos from it.
All right, here we go.
You know, Ed and I have been around together for a long time. So I've got all kinds of crazy stories, but I wouldn't tell any of them. So.
We have been joined by the man. We're talking about him a lot. And now.
Told you.
He has joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Ed, you can take the mask off.
Welcome, Ed.
Ed Rosenthal, thank you for joining us on Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Hi, how you doing?
We're great.
Very good.
You have a lot of friends here today, Ed, that all decided to join us because you're here. Jamie, go ahead with your intro.
Nope, we're celebrating your history in this movement over the years and your contributions, and we'd like to hear from you on some of that and also what's going on currently and some views on your thoughts on the more current world of cannabis. And we have lots of friends here, and you requested some, and some of them heard you were coming on and wanted to join us.
Great. Well, I'm here, so let's do stuff.
All right.
That's a can-do attitude, Ed. Way to go.
That's a great plan. I like it. It's a solid plan.
So Adam Brook was just talking about a question.
Everything has to stop for a moment. There's no cannabis on my desk.
Oh, no.
All right, the world.
That happened to me too. I gotta go run down and get some.
I'm not sure who your assistant is, Ed, but if you might need to hire you just a weed assistant to make sure you have weed and water.
Just to update all of our audio listeners, we have Jamie Lowell, Rick Thompson, Nick Zettell, Colin MacDougall, Berg from Medical Mondays, Shelly Smith, Derek Gauci, Professor Mike Whitty, Adam Brook, Rhory Gould, Uncle Stoner Bobby West, and the incomparable Debra Young joining us with Ed Rosenthal.
Okay, well, I just went to the dispensary, and here I just got the stuff. Oh, there it is. Wait, I mean, when I say the dispensary, my dispensary, my personal dispensary.
Sure.
I just saw a hand.
That's right.
What was in that hand?
That's what I was showing you, what I got from my personal dispensary.
I saw 4 fingers. Was it a count of 4 fingers?
No, I'm not smoking the
Good,
fingers.
Ed.
I don't smoke the fingers anymore, Rhory. No, I use a pipe now. You know, Rhory remembers when I would just put a little lighter fluid on the grass in my hand.
Oh, God.
Is that for real?
No.
Trying to find that video.
I want whoever was asking the question about the creeper plant, I am super
I'll ask
curious.
Ed that.
I'm super curious.
That creeper was lost. You know, I gave it to 3
It was
people.
lost.
I gave it to 3 people, including Sensi Seed, and everybody lost it.
They lost
What
it?
was it called? Did you have a name for it? What did you call it?
Creeper. Because what it did
Oh,
is
just creeper.
is it got about 2 feet high, and then the branches continued growing, but the branches went prostrate to the ground. So it just crept along the ground. It was a great plant. So it would spread out 10 feet.
It looks like a big bush.
Was that a
It wasn't
ruderalis?
not like a bush. It was like a creeper. It
Well,
was
like a
something-
creeper, right? It creeped, but it creeped on the ground like
It was one layer. It didn't, it was one layer along the ground, and it would stretch out to a 10-foot diameter or so. And
like a
it was
weeping
great
willow
plant.
or something?
almost.
And the thing is, this was a time when it was, when there was more police activity. So police would be looking up,
at the 6-foot level.
Yeah, or something, and it was on the ground. They could be walking on it and they wouldn't know it.
Maybe it was like a cross between a vine that runs along the ground and a cannabis plant.
Well,
I feel like it's worth a shot.
It was,
in
it was
1958, Jack Herr and I invented cannabis by crossing a corn plant with a squash, and cannabis came out. And as you know, that was when cannabis came into being.
Yeah, everybody knows that story.
Sounds like the creeper might be part poison ivy.
Right, could be. I did
I
get a
think it's
tickle
worth
in
a
my
shot.
throat from it, so I don't know.
I want to try it.
Man, I'm interested in the case that I came across it just coincidentally, and some other like training stuff and some references to major court cases and things like that. And I was really interested in the fact that in your case from 2007, there's clearly states that you were acted vindictively against by the federal agents.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
They didn't like me.
Nice. We got a little bit more space to
That's it,
fill.
case closed.
If you're
Interviewing.
Stretch, Ed, stretch. Yes.
Stretch it out, stretch it out.
Well, don't
That
forget
was a
at the
paper.
time.
Go off a
at
little
the
bit.
time, Ed was at the time. Ed was well known for testifying in court cases and participating in, real big activism. So he was well known amongst the prohibitionists, you might say, especially the legal one.
Yeah, at a time when there are few voices, the loud ones.
They had
really
that
do
video
stand out.
of me, and they had a video of me, and that they used in their fundraising. I don't know, one of the groups like the one that was at 666 Fifth Avenue. Well, anyway, one of the anti-organizations had a video of me that was that they used, and they also had Tony Serra on it. And with me, they said, so I was at a conference, and the Harvard professor Grinspoon had just given a speech about, and it was a very touching speech about how his son, who had leukemia and ultimately died from it, but got tremendous relief by using marijuana before taking the radiation therapy and other therapies. And I got up and I was the next speaker, and I got up and I totally changed my speech. And I described how I too was a medical marijuana patient. And I used it as a preventative for eye disease. So the thing about it was, we didn't know whether I would catch these eye diseases if I gave it up. So I couldn't afford to give it up for fear that I would go blind. And
Preemptively, you had to
We
smoke
co-
cannabis, or else you possibly could go blind.
We
Yeah,
call that the prophylactic effect.
Yeah. And, you know, I gave this speech, you know, where, you know, I just explained that, and the whole audience started laughing.
Yes.
I don't know why they were laughing when I was talking about using it prophylactically, you know, but anyway, they all started laughing, and that's what went out. And then the organization had some commentary about it, and they totally ignored that people were laughing. They, you know, they showed this as how this was a total scam, you know. So, but I did you know, I was a scourge on the marijuana prohibitionists. They didn't do well with me. I was once on a show with Ted Nugent that he walked off the show.
He went after, when I was in prison, I was sitting in a prison cell listening to the Jackson morning show, and he was on, Ted Nugent came on the Jackson morning show, and it was a week before Hash Bash, and he just railed about the people that went to Hash Bash and how stupid stoners were and blah, blah, blah.
Did he give the
blah.
address and where it was and everything?
Oh yeah, he promoted the shit out of it.
Love it.
And,
Thank you.
Right, and I mean, the funny thing is, he goes after us every year. He's an easy target. He's got the same nonsense over and over and over about weed.
He's a cliche.
So Ed, we have a few people listening and watching right now, and Joshua says that Ask Ed is the first cultivation education that he ever got. And Susan says that she loves you. So just to keep you updated on some of the response there.
I'm looking for a second wife, so.
There you go.
That's nothing new.
Love you long.
Wow.
mean another wife? Or
not necessarily in that context, but we'll, you know, if it works.
Hey, Bobby.
Oh, good.
Who set
You don't know what Susan had in mind. You don't know.
Your wife? Bobby. Who set you up with your wife?
You did. You introduced me to her.
Shameless self-praise. Way to go, Rhory.
Rhory, I didn't know you offered matchmaking services.
I don't know. I somehow do it. I don't
He
know how.
does every day. He introduces people to nice, beautiful females.
I know he does.
We got to hang out more.
Then they get married.
No,
We don't got to hang out more.
They don't get married.
They get smoked. Yes.
Could I just shift gears? Could you tell us how we can help the little people, the mom and pop shops, the people that have been left behind, how we can protect medical marijuana's profile? I mean, you're one of the critical but important voices dissenting against overregulation and big canna, but how do we help the little people that we grew up with and supplied us, the gray market and indeed just the medical profile that has become more and more credible? What can we do to lean a little bit back to our origins and not let us be swept up into some kind of 7-Eleven version of cannabis legalization?
Well, I think, you know, in Grower's Handbook, I talk about the tomato model and that there are corporations and companies and farmers of all different sizes selling tomatoes. Like there were some 6-inch people. They were only about this big. Those were the small people selling tomatoes. And then there were much larger people selling tomatoes. But anyway, these, and you know, you can even get to the point where people have a little box of tomatoes in their front yard and they say leave $2 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so there's in tomatoes, there's a possibility for people at all levels and businesses at all levels to participate in the tomato market. And I think that it's the same way with cannabis. And
amen. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's room for everybody in the market. And you know what? I want to say that the most important thing is not the farmer. You know who the most important person in this is? It's the consumer.
Right.
Consumer. And I'm more, even though I work with farmers, I'm more interested in the consumer, that people who want to use marijuana have easy access to it at a reasonable price. And that's what I'm looking for.
Well, and the preservation of home cultivation, because, you know, home cultivation is so crucial to most people's health cycle.
Yeah, well, you know, in the book, I also mentioned that using marijuana may or may not be habit forming, but growing marijuana is addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
listen,
that's the most truthful statement in the book.
That's right. Listen to that.
And
I'm a mom and pop.
What?
My place is a mom and pop.
Yeah. Well, it's a pop.
It's a pop, right? We won't get into that.
Right now, we're not licensed.
Hey, nobody's going to judge you, Rhory. You can be both nowadays. It's 2021, man. So
I'm still not licensed.
Be the mom and the pop, Billy.
Just declare how you identify.
I'm the pop.
Right.
Captain Kirk says hello from Oklahoma.
Hello to Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Captain.
I have to say, one of the coolest things I ever saw, Ed showed me, was Ed had taken me to a grow where they were testing nutrient setups. And there were all these rows of plants, 4 plants in a row, and like tons of rows. And each row had a different nutrient makeup. And on the wall, there were all these colored dots. And on the wall were all these dots and a key that told you what nutrients were being grown. And he says, here, get on this ladder and look around and tell me which one was the best. And when you looked around, you realized quickly that all because it was the tallest didn't mean it was the best or the bush, you know. And anyways, it was a really neat grow. And to me, it just showed the passion that the guy had for plants and growing and learning and education and all that. So I always like to tell people that to me was the coolest thing. And when I say there were nutrients on the wall, there was every nutrient you can think of that was in the grow shop at the time, in that stuff. It was kind of cool. So I respect his energy for the plant. You know, for years he's been known as the guru of ganja. I mean, it's as old school as you get. So I've always respected Ed.
Well, I think you're right. I'm working on a new version of Grower's Handbook. It's going to be called Cannabis Grower's Handbook. And I'm working with Professor Rob Flannery, who is also a commercial cannabis grower. And he has a degree in plant biology. And we're collaborating with many other writers. And some of them, Danny Danko, Remo, others, they're all represented in the book. And we also have different plant scientists and who have been helping us. So the book will be out in September. And so we've been doing a lot of research on it. And when I say research, primary research that hasn't been done before in terms of cannabis. And so we'll have a lot of interesting things. For one thing, what we've done is trace the amount of THC in flowers over the last 3 weeks, and the amount of terpenes on every other day basis.
You I assume are a believer in that the terpene profile means more than the THC content?
Well, you don't usually get too high without the THC.
Correct, but you don't need the highest THC. You need a better terpene profile, correct?
Well, Well, you know, a lot of the edibles just have THC. They don't have terpenes in them. And so I would say it really depends that you're going to get more personality and a different high if you're using terpenes as well.
Ed, now our listeners on Spotify and on Alexa may not know why the medibles wouldn't contain terpenes, and it's all about the processing. Could you explain that to our listeners?
Well, in some processes, especially processes dealing with heat, the terpenes are often they're wafted away. So, like if you're cooking with marijuana and you know you're boiling soup with it or something, the terpenes might, or for a while, the terpenes might just drift out of the soup or out of the water solution, I should say. So you're not always and there are other reasons why there might not be terpenes, depending upon the method that you use to concentrate the THC. It depends also whether you're concentrating the THC or extracting it. If you're extracting it, it's much less likely to have terpenes in it.
Thank you. So, I'm sorry, but your new book, is that going to be released in brick and mortar stores on that date, or is it going to be released through Amazon on that date, or a combination? What's the plan?
Yeah, it should be. It should be in both stores and on Amazon. Yeah.
I've seen your stuff at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
I believe they have a growing cultivation section. They have maybe 20 different magazines in their magazine rack specifically devoted to the industry. So it's gaining more and more popularity. And of course, you have one of the more enduring names in the cultivation sphere.
Yeah. Well, we plan on having a continuous update to this in terms of what's going to happen on our site.
On your website, the supporting the book?
Yes.
What is that web address?
Hasn't been determined yet. When the book comes out, when the new book comes out, it will have its web address.
Can I ask a question before I have to go of Ed?
Please do.
Okay. Ed, my name is Shelly, and I do a podcast called Reads and Weeds, and would love to have a tiny group of growers read one or two of the books. And if you could pop on and say hi to us. What we do on the show is we smoke weed and read books. It's like a weed smoking book club. So I would love it. I would love to stay in touch with you so that when we do your book, you can pop in. Maybe the new book that's coming out, we could do that one. Or I just want permission to stay in touch with you for the possibility of doing something.
Of course, no problem.
Okay.
Just speak with Rhory about it.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shelly, thanks for being with us. And I know you've got to beg out early, but we appreciate your presence today and enjoy your afternoon.
That's very cool. And it is a cool show, too. So
it really is. Colin is waving vigorously at you. So.
Yeah, and she smashed a printer over the weekend, if you didn't see.
She got frustrated with it not behaving properly and decided to
chug it from the second floor.
Have a boss of their own.
People versus electronics. Usually electronics win. So, Ed, what have you learned? I mean, over all the years, lately there's been a lot of technology. LEDs are coming into play. There's a lot of new things. What's been new in your garden lately?
I'm using a lot of plant growth stimulators.
Explain that, please.
Sure.
Well, there are natural hormones and enzymes that plants produce, and you can enhance those in the plants. And they're totally plant products. They don't have anything to do with animals. and so you can get bigger growth out of that. And I'm playing with those, and they'll all be in the book.
Oh, very cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, so Ed, may I talk?
Okay.
Hey, so Ed, like what we've been doing here in Jamaica, because there's hard to find some good nutrients out there and stuff. So we've been taking banana pills, aloe vera, mango pills, coconut water, and making like a tea. And maybe lightly boiling at least all the fruit and stuff and leaves and rinds together, and making a kind of like a tea with all that different stuff to get the enzymes out and feeding our plants. Is it okay to actually boil it? Because it seems like that's the only way we've been able to get it out is by boiling it a little bit, not overdoing it, but just enough to draw out some of the nutrients, natural nutrients of the rinds and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess you could boil it. You know what else? You know what you're missing from it? You don't have any nitrogen in there.
I got burnt coal, burnt wood, charcoal. So I've been using now. Doesn't charcoal have some nitrogen in it or no?
No.
Oh.
No, it has potassium.
Okay. What would I get from where would I get the nitrogen? Yeah.
The nitrogen? Well, you could use urine.
Okay.
Oh, Bobby will love that.
No, my wife will love that. Hey, honey. We need to start using urine in our.
It will be just as if you're on. It will be just like you're on probation.
Could you mail him some? Seriously, is it correct?
Hey, Bobby, I'll
it will
send
be
some
just
in your
like being
care
on
package.
probation. You'll be putting into a cup.
I've got a question. Is your
livestock
urine
and
specialty?
volume, but I don't want to be the guy holding that cup. I tell you.
Well, I remember Soma back in the day talking about peeing on his plants actually and peeing on his seeds.
Yeah, but that's a whole different thing with Soma.
Okay, that.
No, well, that
more of a ritual than science.
No, that was supplying psychedelic nutrients to his plants.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what about cat?
Soma has psychedelic urine, is right.
Now, this cat here we have sometimes will pee on our plants. Is that the same thing, or does it have to be human? Sorry, my wife had the torch going. Now, can it be animal piss?
Well, listen, you're going to answer that question. Do you think that human and cat urine is super different?
Probably not too much. Yeah.
Well, then you answered your question.
Yeah, true. Yeah, thank you, Ed.
And then what happens to the plant will ultimately confirm whatever the answer is.
Well,
smells like cat
you should
piss.
make sure, you should make sure to use a PPM. You should make sure to use a ppm meter.
Yeah.
You do not do this as a foliage spray.
Operative word is PP.
Do it as a foliage spray.
When
Animals won't
when
come
the fans
to you.
are on too.
If you do it as a foliage spray, animals will avoid it.
Right.
Oh man, I don't know if I want to smoke it like that.
Yeah. Not the insects, but the herbivores will.
Right.
Of course, yeah. Okay. Thank you. I told him about the tea.
Bobby, did you get a good answer out of all that?
Yeah.
Excuse me,
I gotta go.
Well,
I gotta
you
give
know,
my plants some nutrients.
He's got to go talk to his wife about peeing on the plants.
I can hear you, Adam.
My wife right here.
It's Jamaica. Anything goes, right?
You know that, right?
What's that?
Soma is selling his urine.
No.
Oh no.
Yeah, in East Europe, because people there can't afford, to buy the drug, so they just, I don't know, they refine his urine.
I've left 5 toads today, and
just still it out. Yeah.
For the record, Colin, see murder. You need to get to Amsterdam to meet Soma. He would be life-changing for you.
Explain for our listeners who that is, Adam.
Oh, Soma's an old head. He what his claim to fame is many. He was an expat who went to Amsterdam and eventually was pushing Soma seeds, and everyone was a big fan. I forgot what his big strain was. Ed, what was?
Amnesia, the Amnesia Haze, the Lavender,
Right.
Reclining Buddha.
Oh, that whole
Laughing
strain,
Buddha.
that whole highway came from him.
Good memory,
Well-
Bobby.
Yeah.
Serious.
Nice.
You know, I got a lot of strains from him back, and I've known him for over 20 years. Same with Adam. You know, we all, some of us met over in Amsterdam. I think one of the first time I met Ed was over in Amsterdam. You know, a lot of us, that was the Mecca. Then is where to go is Amsterdam. You know.
You know they're closing down the coffee shops. They're saying
they're talking about it.
Dude, I just got done redoing that Strain Hunters too. That's
Hold on. They're talking about it, and the way things happen there's a good chance that's never going to happen.
No,
because
it is going to happen.
They're
it's
getting,
going
but
to happen.
why do
you? You know what? It's like this. The guy who's organizing it, a guy named Wilder, he's a super nationalist, much like Trump, and he's appealing to the people in Eastern Holland who are more conservative and more religious than the people in Amsterdam, and that's what they want. And so,
correct. But the city of Amsterdam is going to push back because of their tourism.
No, they have a right-wing mayor.
Oh, I know they do, but the tourism industry is starting to respond.
Oh, but wait a second. I think that I disagree with you about the tourist industry. Let me explain.
Okay.
What about the prostitutes?
Well, first of all, you know that
Priorities.
Central Amsterdam has a limited amount of space.
Right.
It can't build up. So whatever space it has is finite. So when things started, Amsterdam wasn't a big tourist spot. So the hippies came and they filled up all the cheaper hotels, and they brought money to the casual eating spots and everything, and they bought pot and everything. But the money was not going to the people who run the country.
Right, it was dark money.
The money was going to these people who the establishment didn't particularly like. You know, so since then, what's happened is how Amsterdam has become a really, really big tourist city.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if they have a limited amount of space, they say, screw the hippies, screw the young tourists. We want the diamond buyers. We want the fur buyers. We want the people who want to spend more money. So we're going to take these 1-star and 2-star hotels, and we're going to make them into boutique hotels. And that's what they've been doing. And they don't want you there. Please don't come. We don't want you. That is their notice. Why don't you go to Barcelona or something? Leave us alone. And you know, you think of Amsterdam as the center city, but
no, I realize it's not. I'm just saying that
and the people outside the center city don't particularly want you there.
No, I realize that whole lower end tourism thing. I'm just saying that I think that the coffee shop organization that's there is willing to say, all right, get rid of that, but allow our people to still do what we do, and just with some more restriction, like less terrace space.
What they're doing is that they're closing 90 coffee shops.
Right, they just keep shrinking and shrinking.
Yeah, and the great preponderance of those are the ones that are not owned by North Europeans.
Really?
Yeah, like they're either Moroccan owned or they're owned by, Italians or whatever.
So this is nationalism, sort of. It's sort of nationalism in the way they're selecting who they let to win. They let to lose.
That's how the Dutch are.
No, but you see, the thing is, it's not that. It's that they're going, well, if we go after the Moroccans and those other fringe coffee shops, nobody will care. Like nobody will say anything. So we'll go after those first. Then there'll be only a smaller group. So like, and these coffee shop owners, they're not necessarily benevolent people. So, they're closing 90 coffee shops, more for me, So there are a lot of different factors in it. And the thing of it is that the Dutch, what people experienced in the 70s through 2000, that was a result of World War II.
Right.
And the parents who had been so scared, and these people broke out in 67, and it went on for a generation or two. But the Dutch are basically, I'd say, middle-class bourgeois people who, just want to run their lives, and they're tolerant of others, but you didn't see Dutch people in the coffee shops that much.
No,
it wasn't Dutch people hanging out. It was a tourist thing. So, listen, that coffee shop will be. I've seen it with, over and over in Amsterdam. The coffee shops get replaced, and the businesses that replace them, they do business. So, and the Dutch, they're tired of it. They'd rather have wealthy tourists.
Would they? I mean, do we really believe that there's a correlation between lack of coffee shops and increase in the affluence of the tourist trade?
Well, they raise the quality of the cheap hotels, and they make them into boutique hotels or apartments or something. So.
And they've limited all the bed,
and what they replace it with is, these tourists who can buy diamonds and other jewels and clothing. They have a whole clothing sections now.
You can definitely tell a difference in the last 20 years in Amsterdam.
It's like this discussion
it's become geared towards a tourist market, but a different tourist market than it used to be.
Look what they did to Museum Square. How they made that into a whole pedestrian park.
Right.
I mean, a big park. See that they don't want people smoking dope there.
It seems like this discussion has been going on for a long time. Is this the
It's
closest it has gotten?
It has been.
It's not even a discussion. Between all the different governments, this has been a consistent policy. Some do it softer, some harder, but each time another notch on the chain is
enforced a priority decision by whoever happens to be in control at the time.
But the Christian conservatives have been running Holland for a while, either both at the national level and then eventually the mayors and whatnot of Amsterdam, and they're not Christian conservatives like we think in the United States. That's just what they're called, but they are more of a conservative party, where I see some of the things they do, and we laugh that some of the shit is like very Dutch. It's just like their own way of doing things, and they shut down all kinds of stuff for all kinds of.
I mean, it's saying right here.
They're shutting down the red light.
Right.
Shutting down the red light district.
That's one of the things, right? They're trying to turn the red light district into what it was before it was a tourist trap.
No, no. They want to make it into the red light museum.
Right. Well,
no action.
Get rid of.
No action.
Right.
Just shows.
Right.
So Berg, what were you reading about the?
I mean, they submitted last Friday that they're submitting that Amsterdam and they're trying to restrict the tourists from actually going to coffee shops. They're trying
Right.
to
That's they've been proposing that for years, and they're finally.
Yeah, I mean, Friday they submitted all kinds of paperwork for it. So.
Right, but so that already happens in a lot of the border cities. They've done away with, you have to have a passport to purchase in a lot of the coffee shops that are in the bordering cities of Holland.
Now, I would do something, if I was the mayor of one of those towns, I'd do something a little different. I'd pass a law that if you want to buy pot, you have to go to the coffee shop, to get it. And the coffee shop has to be the furthest store from the parking lot in the mall.
Right. That's right.
They're slowly making it so people don't go there.
Well, no, numbers are bigger than ever, Rory, but not of potted people.
What's that?
Numbers of tourists in Amsterdam are larger than ever, just not pot people.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
The museum goers, the
pot people to go somewhere else. They don't want it.
Barcelona, everybody,
right.
People are drifting to Barcelona and Madrid, but especially Barcelona. But
pretty soon, I think Mexico's going to be a hot spot.
The other thing is, Amsterdam lost its importance once Dennis opened the first dispensary.
Right.
From that time on, its importance went, became less and less.
You're referring to Dennis Perron in California when they opened the first dispensary, and that would be the only American dispensary you could go to. And prior to that, you had to go to Amsterdam
to buy over the counter,
or your dealer. But
or your dealer.
Look at that. I want to mention something about that. So Dennis opened in 1974. California passed the decrim law. So simple possession was just a fine. So in order for that to affect you, from 74, you would, let's say you really came in contact with pot, let's say when you were 15. So that would mean that you would have been born in 59. So anybody who has been born in 59 in California never saw the full impact of prohibition, only partial. And then in 96, when it became legal for medical, that was another diminution. So we take 1959, right? That's 41 years in the 20th century and 20 years now, right? So you'd have to be 61 years old if you were living in California, to over 61, to understand the full effects of prohibition. As opposed to Oklahoma, which now has the most liberal laws in the U.S. as far as cannabis, anyway.
I think Oklahoma actually takes buffalo pelts as payment for their dispensary fees. Now they're so inexpensive to get into.
It's ridiculous. When I was there last year, and literally every corner, it seemed like had a dispensary on it in Oklahoma City. It was.
I really like
so many of them.
The participation of many small farmers there. Of course, under emergency rules, we had a version of that for a while, but
it's like Colorado.
But that system's working there, right?
Yeah, it was working here too.
A long time ago.
Right. Well, yeah, but our system, they changed the rules on it.
Well, there's a snapshot right now. Is a snapshot in time. We'll see how that completely open market. I mean, look at Oregon.
If I was starting out now, I'd move to the Oklahoma Panhandle for a few years.
Right.
Explain why, Ed.
Well, the Panhandle is a very thin area between two states that are where it's illegal. So people are likely to seek out legal, inexpensive pot from Oklahoma, right?
Right.
So if you're in the Panhandle, it's a good place to be.
Location.
Everybody around you has prohibition except for you.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe the far end of the panhandle.
Oh, getting
I've thought about
I don't
that.
know about populations, though. I'd go where the population is. You know.
I've thought about that with Michigan. There is a small part of Monroe County that you can only access by driving through Ohio. It's called, I think, Lost Peninsula, I think is what it's called. But you have to go through Toledo to actually get to this part of Michigan. And the people who live there are Michigan residents, but they're not connected by the mainland at all. And I thought that'd be a good place for a dispensary, you know, essentially in Ohio.
Place.
Yeah.
You would have to drive. You would have to drive through Ohio to get home, man.
Why would you leave, bro?
For a recreational store for Ohioans, essentially.
Rhory, are you going to open up a drive-through store?
Not yet. They're coming.
There used to be one.
I would love to do that.
At your building? How would you make it set?
No, not at my building.
Oh, that would be tough.
The department talks about making affordable change.
Drive-through restaurants that are closed down after this.
Why not? I mean, you could drive through and pick up your prescriptions, right?
Well, it never should have been
specifically mentioned in the law. That's why.
It never should have been restricted in the first place. And so it does require like an actual amendment to make it so, but the department has been talking about that. So hopefully that happens.
They realize it makes sense.
There is curbside going on now.
Maybe the people would have to get out of their car, walk up to the window that's right there, get their stuff, go back into the car, drive away.
I don't even think they'll allow that at this point. Walk up service.
Right now, the
curbside service is allowed.
Okay, we have curbside right now, where they can drive up. We bring it to them in the parking lot. It used to be against the law.
But that's also a temporary thing.
But those kind of hand transfers got so many people in trouble. That a hand transfer is exactly what that is.
So that's
so many people were thrown in jail for that.
The curbside started off being temporary as part of the emergency rules, but it's going to last now. The director has said it's going to keep it. Yeah.
Yes.
And that does not.
Drive-through is just same thing.
I don't think that you should be
totally
able
cool.
to have
Totally good.
a handoff like that. I think you should have to use robots like Roomba
robots
AI
to deliver it to the car.
Build drones.
Cannabis AI units.
Really long tubes that you know, like pneumatics. Shoot them.
My
like
thing
a gun.
My thing was I wasn't comfortable with curbside. First of all, I'm not buying from a dispensary, but if I was going to buy from a dispensary, I'd want to meet the guy at the corner and kind of like, hand-to-hand deal. I'd feel much more comfortable.
Make it more sinister, yeah.
I will tell you that
maybe they could put two walls and a corner in the parking lot. And you could
throw some garbage on the ground. Yeah. Make it authentic.
Very 70s, 80s thing.
Couldn't quite do the model. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe
but
Mod Squad theme music playing.
In Lansing, the common approach is curbside right now. Even places that can have their lobby open don't. And just
do curbside.
We are a botanical company. We're one of the few places where people can come into the lobby.
I think curbside makes a lot of sense.
Some people prefer it, but many people want to come into the lobby too.
My guys were going to get rid of it. They were telling me they wanted to get rid of it. And I was like, what are you, crazy? They're going to let us do this. We should take advantage of it and do it. And never not do it.
Well, not just cannabis. Other companies are going to continue to keep it as a service too.
That just changed with what happened.
Well, the Lantern delivery service and all the other internal delivery services too, we've really changed within the last couple of months, within the last maybe 24 months. I mean, completely changed the way that we deliver cannabis. Remember how it used to be such a super secret transaction that had to be all video recorded and everything had to be? Now with adult use, they're like, hey, you got an ID? Okay. It's like buying liquor now. No record of the transaction. Nobody takes your thing. Nobody scans anything. You just are.
I totally see in the future, like getting my weed through a drone. A drone will just come and bring me my weed. That'd be awesome.
How about like the equivalent of an ice cream truck?
Yeah, there you go.
Good humor.
I want the Ed Rosenthal mobile,
Listen,
the guru
you-
of ganja mobile.
You hear some reggae from down the street. You
Hey,
know that it's on its way.
Hey, well, wait a second.
Good
It would
humor
have to-
truck.
Tell him, Rhory. Tell him what the thing would have to sell as well as the cannabis.
I can't hear you, Ed.
Tell him what the cannabis truck would have to sell as well as cannabis if we were making deliveries through the neighborhood.
Uh-oh. You're not talking hot dogs, are you?
From Ed Rosenthal? That's a good question.
Yep.
Hot dogs?
Yep.
Hot dog?
Yes, some people get stoned, they eat the hot dogs?
Dope and dogs.
Dope and
Dope
dogs. All right, so I know a guy with a Volkswagen bus that turns into a hot dog stand, and he grills hot dogs on it.
Make them out of
Just add dope.
meat.
Just add dope, right? Bring Ed Rosenthal
I'll
with you.
call him the incredible.
Literally, you could medicate condiments and put them on there. So I mean,
Uncle Stoner, thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
Ed, very good weed.
Ed,
We'll talk to you soon. We'll have you back on soon.
It's about the rain, so I have to pack everything up and go inside.
Oh, I feel
and I want to feel bad for you. I really do.
Oh,
but,
man, roughing it out there.
You know.
Catch a wave, Bobby.
Bless.
Yeah.
Catch
Button your
take
shirt
care,
up. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, man. We'll have him back on.
Yeah. Yep.
He's one of the people who requested coming on today because he wanted to connect with Ed. He said, I've known Ed for 20 years. I want to come on, say hi, and talk about some stories.
So nice.
He would have said anything to get on here.
Yeah, he just wants a little extra exposure. That's right. And to rub in that he's hanging out in Jamaica.
That's all what it's about is Jamaica.
Yeah.
Trust me. Every
Consider
morning.
it rubbed.
Good
Consider
morning
it
from
rubbed.
Jamaica.
He rubbed it in. It was nice.
He's
No, I'm so happy for him. So happy for him.
Oh my God.
He's been in the
talking-
Marley house where they wrote the Three Little Birds song. He's actually been on that doorstep where the birds were and all that stuff.
Truth be told,
just,
if he was in town, I'd be hanging out with him a couple days a week. So the reality is that I miss him.
Hey, Deborah, you were going to say something.
I just saw a scary banner across the TV and a walkthrough thing. It said the organizers of the protest, the riot, claimed that 3 members of Congress were guiding them in the organization of this thing.
Oh, that wouldn't
Remember.
surprise me at all.
Look, they mentioned today on CNN that there's a real concern that some of the incoming Republican legislators not be allowed to have access to Pelosi, not be allowed to have access to Pence or Biden during this transition ceremony, the swearing in, because they are QAnon supporters, and there's no telling what they could do.
Yeah.
That's scary shit.
It's really scary shit.
I mean, they also revealed that they don't go through the regular check. They don't go through magnetic detectors. Any a congressman or senator could be carrying a weapon, and they're never checked for it. Not like other people are. So we don't know who's packing and what they got.
That's ridiculous.
That's why one of the concepts of banning firearms at the Capitol is kind of nonsensical when you allow firearms in the Capitol. But
signs are banned, right? Isn't that ridiculous?
Signs are banned, right? Signs are banned.
You can have a Glock, but you can't have a sign that says cop.
Signs are dangerous.
It's obvious.
Words are dangerous.
It's obvious that
Signs don't kill people.
It's obvious that some of the police that were at the that were there were actually helping the riot.
Two were fired. One that was wearing a MAGA hat with one, and another one was taking a selfie with some of the guys.
Yeah, but it was deeper than that.
Much deeper than
Way
that.
deeper than much deeper. I would totally agree. I would totally agree, because anytime you hear anything about these underground, website things or this internet shit going on, it's always a bunch of cops and ex-military people mixed in with these people. Always. I mean, these people are trained. It's a certain mentality that goes for that type of job.
One of the more interesting, find interesting about this group of people is many of them have tattoos that literally mark them. And when I was in prison, you would see prison guards who would wear their shirts up high enough so that you could see their whatever.
It's a warning to you, right?
But you don't have
Not to
to.
me,
You got they can have video evidence of these motherfuckers.
But right, that's the point, is that these people showed this stuff. They showed their faces. They're not that stupid, or maybe they are, or maybe they really believed in what they were doing, and they didn't realize that there wasn't a large enough crowd behind them to get anything done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you
so
live in a
the-
bubble. You think everybody's on on the same wavelength as you and on those sites. And
Well,
shit.
it
You
was
think the whole
an
country's like
agitated
that.
mob who was whipped to a frenzy by political leaders who they trusted implicitly, and those kind of people don't bring the implements of revolution because they never planned on it. They got whipped into a frenzy, and that's what happened.
Hey Ed, what do you got? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Ed.
Yeah, Ed's trying to get something.
There was this woman on being interviewed who had been maced.
Yeah,
and
I
she
saw her.
said, "I can't believe they maced me."
Yes,
and,
I saw
and they said, "Well, what were you doing?" And she said, "Well,
she was holding the onions. She was.
I was just taking a
She
shit in the
brought the
hallway.
onions. Right.
So
she
she
did. She
said-
brought measures to fix her eyes, so she knew she was going to be maced.
No, wait a second. She said, "Well, I was climbing into the window," and they said, and the commentator asked her, "Well, you knew you weren't supposed to do that." She said, "This is the revolution."
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They believed
was
it.
patriotically and
Kindness is
bravely climbing to
ridiculous.
the window, and they had the nerve
She's lucky
to
she
mace
didn't
me.
get shot. She's lucky she only got maced. Another woman got shot. You know,
Can
you
I
start
ask-
busting through windows, but someone's going to shoot your ass.
I think they should allow these protesters, but everybody should have to be in blackface.
Blackface.
I want to ask Ed a question about revolution, because we're all
Then they'll, it doesn't matter that they're acting. They'll see that, the guards will get rid of them.
Oh, you're saying so that they'll be shot.
Hello?
Right. Yeah, we get it.
Okay.
He's right. Here's my question for Ed, though, because I've known Ed a long time. He's been involved in the weed game.
Looks like Mike is trying to talk.
Mike Whitty, you're on mute, my friend.
Unmute yourself.
But yeah, but
I just want to know if Ed thought that we would be where we're at today in the weed game at this point. I mean, I know you'd been working on it a long time.
Well, I don't want to date myself, but I will. But I was in my apartment on the Lower East Side in New York in 1968, and a bunch of us were there and saying, "How long do you think it will be legal before it will be legal?" People have varying things, and one person said it won't be legal for 20 years. Now that would have been 1988, and people said, "How? Why would it be so long?" He said, "Well, by that time, a lot of us will be in responsible positions and be running things, and the law will be changed." So, in 68, people thought 20 years was a long time. They didn't realize that it would take 50 years, and it still isn't done.
We should try to get try to get more of our Californians to dialogue with Michigan, like today with Ed, and we'll strengthen our own hand and shorten that timeline for our kids and grandkids, so we have a little freedom and liberty and to relax more safely with cannabis than other ways to relax. So I'm glad that you got the show here together with Ed, and we would help us bring some more interesting Californians to dialogue with these interesting Michigan people.
Right on. And Ed, it might be a connection thing for a second. There you
I was about to say, where'd you go, Ed?
Yeah. So Ed, what are your thoughts on the this year in Washington, given Biden and the victory in Georgia? Are we expecting any substantive movement in cannabis legalization anytime soon?
Well, I think there are two things. I think one is that it doesn't matter what Biden thinks about it, that the law will be changed. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that I think I don't think Biden is going to serve for a full 4 years. I think he's going to resign after 3 years. and one of the first, and Harris, if Biden hasn't done it, in that year, Harris will make it legal.
And then Harris is then an incumbent, so to speak. It might be set
That's
up
right.
for going for the next term.
You're
Okay.
saying
Yeah.
that Biden's
Yeah.
gonna what? Resign?
Resign after 3
Yeah.
years, and then the control will then be taken over by Kamala Harris.
Now that's intriguing because you can be elected twice, but you can serve longer than that
Right.
if you end up taking the appointment by choice or by death, right? So
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
give
because
Kamala an
she'd only,
opportunity to
she'd
serve
serving not, she'd serve 9 years. If she,
Right.
the maximum she could serve would be 9 years.
Yep,
Right.
the two 4-year sentences or sentences, 2 4-year term,
No,
but
that's
also the 1 year that she would have in your hypothetical if Biden left after 3 years. Yeah.
Let me
That is
leave
interesting.
one more reminder.
Surprised if
Today,
he lasts 3 years.
Today's New York Times front page story leads me to still believe that we might be facing the religious right taking over the country in 24. They say that this Christian conservatism is at the core of the chants and the ideology of the militia extremist groups. They've wrapped themselves in Jesus, and that's their driving force. And we really see that in Michigan. The evangelical right can swing these Republican primaries and produce nominees. This woman who ran the 12 buses into Washington from Milford is the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. And they got to find a woman to take on
Well,
Gretchen
well, the
Whitmer.
thing is, most, you know, like, I'm not saying I'm encouraging this, but the further right they go, the more people they lose. Like, let's say the vote were held today. Do you think that he would get 75 million votes?
not at all.
Well, in 4 years,
You know,
he
I don't think so.
gained
I
more
think-
votes.
Not
in just
after
4
what you
years.
just
I
saw.
think he
Not
lose-
after what you
he
just
lost
saw.
20 million vote, minimum
Right.
20 million.
There are people that do not support that and they don't care what their party says. That was offensive to them. And it should be. I mean, it is.
We're seeing the Republican Party undergoing some significant changes. They're splintering. Remember under GW? Go ahead, Adam.
I'm sorry. I just want to say this because I'm not praising the man. I just know he said it because I heard him say it. And long before he ran for office, Donald Trump said, as a lifelong Democrat, he said, if I choose to run for president, I will run as a Republican and I will destroy the Republican Party. And in my opinion, unlike the last time the Republican Party saw an internal coup with the, whatever we called them back in the day, the Tea Party folks, this internal coup in the Republican Party is splintering. I mean, it's earth-shattering. And I'm shocked that from beginning to end, the guy told every lie he could. But the one thing I remember him saying is that he destroyed the Republican Party, and he has.
I don't think he actually ever said that. Like I've seen it around. I don't think he's actually on record for saying that though.
And the Republican Party is not destroyed. It got 74 million fanatics.
No.
in the militia.
But they wouldn't get that today. Is the point? Post what happened, that party's got real problems.
Well, it does have real problems, but there's a huge cult of Trump right now, and that exceeds the party lines. There may be people that run from the Republican Party but still keep their Trump loyalty. And there's a lot of people whose distrust in government originates from the Trump situation, and that distrust will persist until they are in the grave and will affect their children and their friends and anybody else that gets a chance to listen to them postulate.
There it is in a nutshell.
That
You
quote
got it,
is
Rick.
false.
You got it. Yeah.
Berg says the quote is false. What do you got, Berg? You got a source on that?
Oh yeah, it says it's false.
I swear
they're trying to say it's from an article back from People magazine in 1998 that Republicans are the dumbest group of
Yeah, they would believe anything he said, so he would just tell them anything.
It's false. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
don't forget, this guy didn't have to kill anybody on Fifth Avenue. He did it on the Capitol.
Washington.
Well, and he also did it by a very miserably failed response to
There's
the
everyone on this
pandemic.
call, every one of you on this call knows some countercultural, I'm thinking of Dr. Bob's traffic at his little cafe. All of us know some kind of countercultural, new age, alienated person who's solid for Trump thinking, even well past Trump's departure. They're just alienated from life itself. They're beaten down. They're distrustful of every form of authority, ipso facto. And
Easy belief
hard.
that isn't true.
They come from our ranks too. They're not just the
Oh no, they're everywhere.
Yes.
So hey, it's we're
in
starting
my
to
family.
we're starting to get toward the end of the hour here, and probably the descent into ending the show should begin. And we have a lot of people here, so if there's some final thoughts to be had,
let's start with Ed. Yeah, let's
also contact information, Ed, and anything else pertinent to what you have going on with your book and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say it was a pleasure being on the show. I thought it was very interesting and thought-provoking, and I hope I get invited back. And anybody who wants to check out some of my stuff, they can just go on Google and they'll see my website and other sites.
Right on. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more to the history and a lot more discussion, and we would definitely love to have you come back on the show and speak more with us on this stuff.
So as an open forum, anybody want to contribute some final thoughts? Not everyone has to, but if you'd like to, this is a good time.
I would just say,
you have to put somebody on the spot. No,
Colin's got it.
I was unmuting my mic. I was just gonna say, check out the NPO show. Our first episode came out on Friday. It's up on YouTube and on our Facebook. And check out our website. Also, check out Decriminalize Nature Detroit and Decriminalize Nature Grand Rapids. And yeah, I look forward to hearing things from us in the NPO show and Decriminalize Nature Michigan.
Good job. Mike Whitty, you always have some positive final words to say about what's going on and how we can network together and it can all be kumbaya.
We can all contribute to a united front to protect our friends in Lansing and curb the amount of military action in Lansing or DC or worldwide. This world fundamentalism is too caught up in false beliefs and hatred. And I'm confident we're going to make it. I think that our movement's going to get through in the first term and we'll have some good results. We kind of have to work quietly along the margins, as everybody's said, because of the big spectacular stuff going on. But we can move things along. We got a good chance of getting things descheduled in the first term. I'm optimistic. And I would like to leave you with the phrase, free the weed.
Nice job.
Hey,
Nick, you were just in Washington, D.C. Nick Zettell was just in Washington, D.C. You got to look at Students for Sensible Drug Policy and what's going on nationally. Do you have some final thoughts and maybe some insight to share?
Unfortunately, no insight. But I will say just that I did go to D.C. shortly before the new year. And had the opportunity to walk around the mall, which I really do think is a spectacular, space and everything. But I was there at night. It was a full moon, and I have this picture of the full moon above the Washington Monument, and you could even see stars. The reflecting pool, just was kind of like iconic DC, and I was just astounded at how peaceful it looked. And that was, December 29th, and then. Not even 10 days later, it was, a very different scene. But that's all I really have is that I was, impressed by that, or impressed by how peaceful it was, but also, pretty horrified by the juxtaposition there.
Well, I guess that's a good thing for us to remember. No matter how peaceful and sound and safe we are, the terrorists would like us to believe that we should always have fear in our hearts, that they can come and strike at any time. Don't let them take over. Berg and Rhory, do you have anything to contribute?
Oh, where'd I go?
Oh, shit.
Don't worry, you're still here. Keep going.
No, all of a sudden my screen just
Jamie's
Yeah.
messing around with
Jamie's
stuff.
showing his new logo. That's so cool.
Uh-huh.
There we go.
There we go.
I meant to cue that up and then put that on later. I apologize.
Nice job.
Keep going. Beautiful logo, but not necessary right now. Keep going. Sorry about that.
Rhory, did you want to?
There's nothing really I could add.
Okay. How about
Rhory,
you, Berg?
thanks a lot, man, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie, for having me.
Berg, you got some?
Everybody, go to Medical Mondays podcast on YouTube. Subscribe. Check us out every Monday, 9 p.m. Thanks again, Ed, for taking the time out to join us today.
Yeah, and the last Medical Mondays was great, man.
Once again, thank you for having me.
Take a look at it. Mr. Hashbash, your turn.
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank Ed for requesting my presence. That was kind of cool. I've known Ed since 1988. And, when I was contacted about doing the show, I was like, man, I just remember Ed was at one of the greatest things that I ever saw happen at Hash Bash. And it was just after a guy had grabbed the microphone from John Getman, and we wrestled the microphone back, and Ed was the next speaker up, and the crowd was fired up, and Ed basically said, we're not going to take this shit anymore. And I fell in love with the guy. So I've known him a long time, and it was an honor to be here with him. And it's always fun to hang out with you guys.
Well, Debra, if you can come back, it's your turn. We'd like to hear from you. But if not, we'll just enjoy the picture. Here she is.
Enjoy the picture.
Just enjoy our collective packages.
Yeah. It was another great show. I think that we're doing some really legendary interviews here, Rick. So, some of this stuff is really good material. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Looks like they're going to impeach Trump tomorrow. I just saw Liz Cheney saying that she will vote to impeach the prominent Republican. So that's going to be very interesting. I'm going to be watching that most of the day tomorrow. And hopefully we move on. We get this shit taken care of. We clean up this mess and start concentrating on some federal cannabis law reform.
So
it's true that we live in historic times. Go ahead.
So if they impeach him, then he can get a pardon.
Yeah,
that's potentially true. Yes.
Yeah, this
if he gets convicted, they might hold off. They might hold off on the Senate side.
Pardon him.
Did
you see that he was going to issue a blanket pardon for the rioters and pardon himself? I mean, this could get really weird.
Yeah, look, we got to end the show, but there's so much we could talk about. We have to end the show. So thanks very much to Ed for joining us. Thanks for our guests, Nick Zettell, Colin MacDougall, Mike Whitty, of course, Derek Gauci, Berg, Rhory Gould, Debra, Mr. Hashbash, Adam Brook, Jamie Lowell, myself, Rick Thompson. We had Shelly Smith on here also, and we also had Bobby West on earlier, Uncle Stoner. Jamie, take us home.
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your participation. There are many other shows. I want to point out Rick's on 420 Post on Wednesdays. There's Planet Green Trees, Medical Mondays, as Berg mentioned, Reeds and Weeds, and the new Entheo show, Smoking Rope. And everybody pay attention to those things and come back and join us here on the Jazz Cabbage Cafe. And we'll have everybody back on for updates here throughout the year and really appreciate your participation. Ed Rosenthal. Everybody have a great night. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Take care, everybody.
Night.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.